Good evening, and welcome to this cross-curricular webinar for teachers of Junior Cycle Religious Education and teachers of Junior Cycle English. My name is Anne-Marie Garvey, and I'm an advisor with the JCT English team. I'm joined this evening by my colleagues, Nora Amelia, who's also an advisor with the JCT English team, and Keith Young, who's an advisor with the JCT Religious Education team. Good evening, Nora.
Good evening, Anne-Marie.
Good evening, Keith.
Good evening, Anne-Marie.
Tonight, we're delighted to introduce teachers to a new resource developed by JCT in collaboration with RTE and the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland. The resource explores the key learning and issues raised in the RTE-funded observational documentary Between Land and Sea. The documentary, directed by Ross Whitaker, takes us through a year in the life of prime Irish surfing spot Lahinch in County Clare. The film follows a community of surfers trying to get by in this harsh climate, following their daily struggles with work and family alongside the endless draw of the waves. Before we continue, Keith would like to draw your attention to some features of the webinar.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. All attendees are muted, and while you can see us, we can't see you. We hope that you will engage with us this evening. Please pose any questions or comments you have using the question tab. Depending on what device you're on, you can see here with the red arrow where the question tab is. Your questions and comments will only be visible to the English and RE teams, and you will not be called upon to answer questions. If we experience any technical difficulties, don't worry. You will be emailed a link to the video recording, and this webinar will be available on www.jct.ie in the coming days.
Thank you, Keith. Let's turn our attention for a moment to the documentary itself, Between Land and Sea. We had the privilege of interviewing director Ross Whitaker, and we will listen to that interview later. But now we invite you to take a moment to sit back and enjoy the film's trailer.
I can still actually remember the waves just wanting to be surfed. You know, a hair's breadth away, you've got pain and turmoil and fear. But yeah, if you're in the right spot, you can be right beside that, and it feels as still and as calm and as right as anything else. How many of those moments might be left?
Hey, it's Good Friday, you know, the pubs are closed, but Lahinch Surf School's open, you know.
I had it all. Most of my surf companies' sponsorships are up now, and it is hard work, you know, trying to make a life for yourself when you're starting from scratch.
How long can you really keep surfing those waves without getting hurt? How long can you keep the passion for doing crazy things, you know, if the money isn't there?
I remember being really blown away when I first came to Clare and thinking, wow, yeah, what a place. Got to make it work.
Like having a playground on your doorstep. It's like my playground's the ocean.
Here's to an epic adventure on the land.
Feels like you're in a movie here. Such a trip.
Oh my God.
I have huge pride in Lahinch. This can be as good as any other place in the world.
It's really a beautifully crafted film.
It is. It captures the warmth of a community, the rugged beauty of the natural landscape, and the draw on the power of the ocean.
And it really allows us to share in the real-life daily struggles of a wide variety of captivating characters, the ordinary rough and tumble of life, and the relationships and sense of place that sustains us.
I think that was what opened up for us, the incredible sustainability of the resource to complement the key skill of staying well.
Yeah, Keith, Can you speak about how the learning experiences within the resource are designed to complement that key skill of staying well?
Well, Anne-Marie, put simply, the learning experiences of the resource aim to develop students' ability to be social, spiritual, confident, and positive about learning. The activities support students in developing their understanding of the concepts of love and belonging. They explore the interdependence between person and place, how a sense of belonging sustains us as people, and how we in turn can contribute to the development of place. I think this has particular relevance, I suppose, for the times we are in now.
Yes, Kate. The trailer has given us a perspective as to what the documentary explores and indeed the accompanying classroom resource. But in developing this resource, we were really cognizant of the need to make it relevant to current school circumstances. As the resource is available online and is based around video clips, it is accessible for use in the physically distanced classroom and indeed by students engaging in learning from home. It also includes links to the JCT active learning strategies that have been updated for the current context. I think it's also important to mention, though, that this resource, just as it was a joint endeavour between the RE and the English teams, it's designed to allow for collaboration between English and RE departments within schools.
Oh, absolutely, Anne-Marie. The resource promotes cross-curricular collaboration where possible between RE and English teachers, but it can be used by either or both departments. The resource is structured in 4 distinct yet complementary sections. The shared introduction for both subjects is built on exploring our sense of place in the world, in developing students' prior knowledge around their perception of their place in the world, and their understanding of the importance of belonging. It also includes 2 suggested units of learning, one for English and one for religious education, both using learning outcomes from the relevant subject specification. Both units of learning include suggested links to the learning outcomes for students participating in the Level 2 learning programme to engage with the resource. The 4th section offers approaches to students and teacher reflection on the learning. In the 4 sections, we have identified relevant active learning strategies, and we have created opportunities for ongoing assessment and the development of key skills.
Thank you, Nora. I think it's also worthwhile to mention at this stage that the resources created do not have to be used in a linear fashion, but rather to support the creation of learning experiences that work for individual schools in their unique context. The resource is flexible in nature, allowing the teacher to dip in and out, selecting learning experiences as he or she sees fit.
What about your own subject area then, Keith? How can this resource be used in the junior cycle religious education classroom?
Well, in the religious education unit of learning, the resource asks our students to engage with the 3 elements of inquiry, exploration, and reflection and action, across 3 interconnected strands of expressing beliefs, exploring questions, and living our values. This all using a non-linear approach to the learning. There are both individual and collaborative learning experiences that explore our search for meaning in the world and our understanding of purpose in life, along with teacher notes that explain how to facilitate the learning. The resource gives students ample time to pause and reflect on some of the fundamental questions in life, such as how can we find meaning and purpose through helping others? How spirituality can give people a sense of meaning and purpose, and ultimately, how people can find a sense of meaning and purpose in their own community. Furthermore, the unit of learning investigates these themes from a contemporary perspective and thoroughly engages students by using collaborative strategies. These strategies are both inclusive and creative, allowing for the participation of all students. They engage students in participation through audiovisual stimuli and offering ample opportunities for class discussion, formative assessment, and also opportunities to further progress the learning through research.
Thanks, Keith. Nora, would you like to briefly outline the English part of this resource?
Absolutely, Anne-Marie. I think one of the nicest things about this resource is that the student is at the centre. We hope that teachers and students will really enjoy the fact that this film is based around a real place, the community of Lahinch, real people and their struggles. There's a lovely diverse range of characters in this film as well. It's a modern Irish film And it is based around a community of surfers, which we hope that young people will really enjoy. The learner experiences allow for student and teacher choice, being particularly suitable for a mixed ability classroom. We felt that the resource couldn't just look good on paper, but it also had to be really practical on the ground. The learning experiences are centered around supporting students to develop the ability to tell a story. So it takes us through setting a scene, developing character, creating conflict, and forming a resolution. Many of the activities within the experiences help develop the collection of texts. They could be very useful to support students to prepare for and partake in CBA 1 and CBA 2 assessment moments. It's not only a ready-made unit of learning, but it also contains L2LP suggested links. And anywhere within the English unit of learning where we made cross-curricular opportunities, that is clearly outlined by the jigsaw icon. And finally, and very importantly for the world that we're living in today, it does not shy away from the reality of our classroom space today, or indeed how it could be tomorrow. Whereas the unit is created with longevity in mind, it is also dedicated to providing solutions for the here and now. So throughout the English section, online learning strategies have been indicated by the globe icon.
In terms of the documentary and how it was crafted, Keith, you had the opportunity to interview the documentary's director, Ross Whitaker, recently.
Yes, Anne-Marie, it was such a pleasure to interview Ross. He was so generous with his time and offered such a wealth of experience and wonderful nuggets of wisdom in terms of crafting a film documentary. I suppose Between Land and Sea stands tall amongst his other acclaimed films. I'm sure many viewers are familiar with his work, namely Unbreakable, the Mark Pollock story, Anthony Foley Munster Man, Katie, and Shane Lowry Open, but to name a few.
Let's have a look at your conversation with Ross now and hear his thoughts.
Ross, you're very welcome. We'd like to thank you for joining us today to speak about your beautifully crafted documentary film, Between Land and Sea. We're delighted to be collaborating with RT Learn and the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland to create supports for teachers and their students participating in the junior cycle. Today we have a number of questions posed from both the subjects of English and religious education respectively to help us further understand your documentary film Between Land and Sea, its characters and the themes contained therein. So Ross, you filmed many acclaimed documentaries in your career such as Unbreakable, the Mark Pollock story, Shane, Larry, Ope, Anthony Foley, Munster Man and Katie. What inspired you to create the documentary Between Land and Sea?
Well, I think what happened there was it was an opportunity to do something over a period of time. And I really enjoyed the process of filming with people over a period of time and actually seeing their lives unfold in real time. And seeing them experience things as they happen as opposed to reflecting on them retrospectively. So with Between Land and Sea, when we first spoke about it, we talked about how could we make a kind of chronicle of a surf town. And what would that look like? And one of the ideas that we discussed would be me with the producers, Jamie and Anne. What would it be like if we follow people from sort of January 1st until December 31st? And we saw how their lives evolved over the seasons. And we saw what it was like to live in a town like that, both in the winter and the spring and the summer and the autumn, and back into the winter again. And we thought as well it could be quite interesting to see how there would be a concertina of people. You know, in the summer, the town expands and in the winter it kind of contracts. So that was just kind of talking about it and kind of on paper as opposed to knowing what it would really be like until we got there. So in retrospect, I think it was a good way to do it, you know, a good way to see how society in that particular part of the world evolved over time. And that was one of the big things that attracted me to it. And it was also something I knew little about. And I think sometimes you think, if I know little about it, but I also feel that it's an interesting subject, then maybe the audience will too. And maybe I can take the audience with me into this community and kind of reveal what it's like to live there.
So Ross, you spoke about the community of Lahinch. There's a lovely variety of characters in Between Land and Sea. What was it about these characters that appealed to you?
I think what we're always looking for is for people that have something at stake in their lives. You're trying to find over the course of a year that you'll see things happen to them that might be drama or micro drama, little life dramas along the way. So you're looking for people that you think over the period that you'll be filming, things will happen in their lives and that they'll have to respond to them. And we went down there with an open mind just to meet different types of people. We felt like we wanted a variety of characters. We wanted them all to be people that pretty much surfed or somehow had a connection with the sea. And then we were just looking for people that had different things going on in their lives. And in the first few weeks or month that we were there, because we literally went down in the first week of January and we had to respond really quickly. And it's quite a low budget film. So, you know, we had a very small team trying to do this, is just find people, talk to them, find out what was going on in their lives and just begin filming and see what happens. So we didn't have a huge research period in terms of finding characters, just the way it worked out timing wise. So when we found people that we thought, wow, something's going to happen in their lives over the next year, we clung to them and kind of followed them.
What for you then, Ross, are the elements of a good story? And can you give examples of these from between land and sea?
I think a good story, ideally, firstly, has an answer to that question, what's at stake? You know, that you kind of think, okay, there's something that's going to happen here. There's something for the audience to feel at some point that they won't know what's going to happen next and they really want to know. And if there's something at stake, if you're a farmer and you don't know if your crops are going to work out, that's something at stake. That's something that people can emotionally cling to. So you're looking for a narrative arc or a perspective narrative arc. You're looking for a character that you find interesting and therefore hope the audience will find interesting. I suppose those are the big things, you know. Plot is something that's really used for fiction or drama, you know, but you're looking for something that resembles that in a documentary, a story that's going to evolve, a story that's going to have turning points. And then people who are really interesting and complex as much as possible, because if they are, then people will wonder about them and wonder about the decisions they're going to make. So I think those are the two biggest things. And then story-wise, I suppose you're also looking for a setting, you know, setting that is interesting or attractive in some way. And in the case of Lahinch, it's an amazing backdrop, you know.
So learning is a journey of self-discovery. In this resource, we try to provide opportunity for students to experiment with a range of storytelling forms. As a young storyteller, did you experiment with other forms of media? And how did you discover film was the medium for you?
Well, I wouldn't have been someone that was particularly artistic in a school sense. As you know, there's always people in your class who are brilliant at drawing, or they might create comic strips or something like that. And there's a guy in my school called Cathal Gini who was amazing at doing that. And he's actually gone on to be a film director, funnily enough. He lives in Australia now, but he was always the one in our class that was the artistic one, you know, just because he was better than everyone else at it. And you would almost think then by comparison, well, I'm not an artistic or creative person, but as time went on, and I always liked reading books, and I originally was interested in studying English, although I didn't. I always liked writing, and I always liked doing projects. I liked doing stuff where you could, you know, be given something to do and then have to create that project, and by the end of it, have something to show for it. And there was always a writing part in that, or a creating a proposal part of that. So I was always interested in that. And then when I was trying to make decisions about what I was going to do in my early 20s, I was watching a lot of film, and I said, well, look, I'll do a course in this. So I did that for a year. So I tried lots of different things, although I didn't realize it. And then I kind of fell in love with screenwriting. But then at the same time, I was watching a lot of documentaries, and then I realized that real life stakes were much more interesting than anything I could write. So then I wanted to combine those two things. So kind of taking the real world, taking real life, and sort of structuring stories out of that. So it kind of combines the screenwriting with the filming. And to me, that's kind of the perfect combination.
One of the objectives of BAI is to bring high quality Irish productions into classrooms. Why do you think it's important for students to have the opportunity to engage with film text?
I think it's really important. I think that that's probably the medium that they spend most of their time with, visual mediums, So I think that if you look at the last decades, I don't know how many decades you have to go back, but film is a major art form, and it's a very accessible art form, and it's something that people can enjoy from a very young age. It draws you in. It's very natural in that sense. I think it's important because the storytelling is very contemporary, even if you're telling retrospective stories. In terms of documentary, I think what better way to understand the world than to watch other people's lives. And from that point of view, I think watching documentaries, watching films, it's a very kind of modern and accessible way of consuming life. And from that point of view, I think it's really important. And I'm delighted that it is part of it, actually, because when I was in school, it wasn't. And it feels, that it's something that maybe students can use as a way of being interested in stories. And then that can maybe bring them towards other storytelling as well.
Do you have any advice for young people attempting to find their creative voice?
I think one of the biggest fallacies that I ever hear around the place is the idea that some people are creative and other people aren't. And there's even a term that you hear people using, saying, I am a creative, as a noun, and I think that can kind of separate people out and can make people feel, well, I'm not one of those. I've heard people say I'm not a creative, but all of us have creativity within us. And I would definitely be someone that surprised people in going on to do what I did. And friends in college say to me all the time, never would have thought you'd be doing what you're doing now, And I think the biggest thing to do, if you have any interest in expressing anything, is just to start doing it and not feel that you have to be perfect when you start off. Because I've been doing this for 15 years, and it's only really in the last couple of years I feel like I'm getting any good at it. It can take a long time to develop your voice. It can take a long time to learn your craft. And that's a process. I don't think you can pick up a camera on day one and be any good. And I hate when I hear people say, I'm not going to do the piano. I'm no good at that. And they maybe tried it twice. Mozart wasn't good the first time either. So I think the biggest thing to say to people is to just do it and try it. And you find your own way. You find your own voice. And also, I think consume's a horrible word, but to read lots of books and to watch lots of films and to look for the quality texts out there, and there's lots of places you can find the 100 best novels of all time or the 100 best films of all time. Go and watch the best stuff and then try your own things. And they won't resemble each other at first, but hopefully over time you'll get there.
How do your personal values impact your documentary making?
I think I kind of strive to be a truthful person, and be fair. I don't know, that's something that kind of had in me from a young age, just to be as fair as I can be. And maybe it's like, I see it in my little boy now. He's 5. He hates any injustice, and I've always been a little bit like that myself. And I just think I try to be as fair as I can and as truthful as I can in any story that I'm telling. And I suppose that's just doing that kind of thing of trying to do to others as you would like them to do to you. Like, it's an old Christian value, but it's it's a societal value as well. And ultimately, I think if you want to have longevity in what you do, whether it's in filmmaking or business or sport or anything, if people can trust you, then over time that will keep coming back on your side. Because when I'm making documentaries, I'm dealing with real people, and those real people have to trust you. And if they can come out the other side of a film about them and feel like you were truthful and fair with them, then it's more likely that other people that you may want to make other documentaries about in the future will see that and feel that you brought a level of fairness and truthfulness to it, and will be more open to doing that in the future. And I've definitely found that. I've definitely found that people have said, like, okay, I may not have been interested in being in a documentary before, but when I watch this, I feel like you treated that fairly. And therefore, I feel like I can trust you. and therefore I may be open to this. And that's something that I feel gives you a certain longevity in doing what I'm doing.
The religious symbolism used in Between Land and Sea is a stark reminder of our cultural heritage and intrinsic sense of spirituality. Why did you choose to encapsulate this by using these particular symbols?
I am very interested in religion in Ireland. I think it's a really interesting time and a really interesting subject material. We're almost in what you could call like a semi-post-Catholic age. You know, a lot of people have left the church. There's been a lot of controversy in the church. At the same time, people are finding lots of other ways to explore spirituality. And whenever I see that, I'm interested in it. And whether it's people that are still have very strong Christian values or people that have left them behind and are interested in other things. And I think somewhere like Lahinch, you can see across the board both quite a lot of symbolism that speaks to another time, like, you know, old crosses on walls and so on, and then people that have found their own way of exploring Christianity, sometimes in a way that's separate from the Catholic Church. So whenever I see that, I find it interesting. And I think sometimes you can want to dismiss something because you're not interested in it or you don't feel it has a value anymore. But I feel like documenting where we are at a particular time has a value. And I think in touching on certain symbols along the way throughout the documentary, I think you're kind of just hopefully piquing that little bit of a thought in someone to go like, oh, that's interesting. You know, this is a little bit of a picture of where we are, or at least nods to a picture of where we are in relation to how we interact with religion, I suppose. It's a tricky one, you know, because there's so many different points of view on it in Ireland, and there's a lot of people that are quite jaded about religion, and you don't want to omit it just because you think some of the audience will roll their eyes or whatever it might be. You want to kind of embrace it and kind of say, okay, here's something that's part of our country and who we are. You know, how does this make you feel? How does this make you think?
Themes that incorporate the search for meaning, one's purpose, and one's inherent value system are apparent in your documentary making. Can you pinpoint any defining moment in your life that has led you to include these types of themes in your work?
I have to think about that a little bit, but I think I've always been really interested in the concept of identity and who you are, and also how you create to a certain extent who you are, or how you look at the different elements of who you are to create your own identity, whether that's a conscious or unconscious thing. And I'm not really sure why I'm interested in that so much. I think it's something, I did sociology in college as amongst other things, and when we did that in college, it really like hit me over the head as being absolutely fascinating. And I think that I've just taken that forward, as always in almost all of my documentaries. There's a strong element of identity and people trying to kind of figure out who they are, you know, almost all of them. And I think it's a combination of trying to figure out who we are and also where we get meaning seem to almost be present in everyone's lives or many people's lives. And certainly it's something I'm attracted to thematically within the documentaries. So yeah, I don't know if it was a personal experience that brought me to that or it was just something that evolved over time, but I'm absolutely fascinated with identity as a theme.
Well, once again, on behalf of the English and Religious Education teams at the JCT, many thanks for speaking with us here today, Ross. We're really excited about engaging with the documentary film Between Land and Sea as a stimulus in both the subjects of English and religious education, and we look forward to utilising the accompanying resource to its fullest potential.
Thanks, it was a pleasure.
We would like to thank Ross for his wonderful insights into the whole process of crafting the film documentary Between Land and Sea. His exploration of its development, its characters, the setting itself, and the themes involved was intriguing.
Indeed it was. One of the questions we received this evening is where to access this resource, which brings us nicely to our conclusion.
Between Land and Sea, a classroom resource, is part of the RTE Learn Junior Cycle resources. So to further explore the resource as a whole, you can simply type www.rte.ie/learn/junior cycle into your address bar at the top of your browser. If you click on the image, it will bring you to a page where you can download the Teacher's Resource Guide. Clips to support the learning within the resource are embedded into this document itself.
Before we leave this evening, we'd also like to draw your attention to further new supports designed by the English and the RE teams. These include podcasts that have been created by both the English and religious education teams respectively and can be found on the Junior Cycle channel. English teachers may be familiar with these podcasts and the array of stimulating interviews and conversations that have been recorded.
And I suppose new for this year is the religious education podcast episodes called Reflections. The inaugural religious education podcast is available this month on the Junior Cycle channel.
On behalf of the Junior Cycle English and religious education teams, I invite you to join our subject mailing lists, which can be accessed on the homepage of jct.ie. And I thank you for joining us this evening. We hope that Between Land and Sea, a classroom resource, will be a support for you and your students in the Junior Cycle classroom. Thank you.